HOA wanted me to sell my land. I built a castle that changed the whole town. You ever stare at a blueprint so long you start to dream in stone? That was me for most of last year until my dream almost got bulldozed by a woman named Margaret Langston and the fake HOA she conjured from thin air. I'm Elijah Brooks' architect, veteran, and builder of things that last. After my mom passed, I inherited the last bit of our family's land in rural Georgia, 3 acres tucked behind a subdivision called Ridge Glen. That land, it's where I learned to walk, where Dad built me a treehouse, where Mom planted roses the deer always ate. It's the only place I've ever called home, and I wasn't about to let some freshly minted neighborhood president in a pressed blouse tell me what I could or couldn't do on it, but that's exactly what happened. It started when I broke ground. Not a lot of folks build castles in the South, not literal ones anyway, but I wasn't going for medieval fantasy. I was going for permanence, something grand but grounded. Stone, reclaimed wood, sustainable design. My dream was to build a living monument, part home, part studio, part community hub, something bold, something unapologetic. 3 weeks into excavation, I got a letter slid under my windshield. Unapproved structure. Immediate cease and desist required under Ridge HOA Article 9. I blinked. I wasn't in Ridge Glen. My land had its own deed, passed down since 1898. I wasn't even on their grid. They'd paved a cul-de-sac near the edge of my lot, but I never signed anything. I'd never agreed to any covenants. I sure as hell didn't vote for an HOA. So I called the number at the bottom. That's how I met Margaret Langston. She answered like she was running a call center. Tight tone, zero warmth. I understand you're building an unsanctioned structure on Ridge perimeter land. I replied, no ma'am. I'm building a permitted structure on my land. You're in violation of our community standards. I don't belong to your community. Silence. Then, she said something that set the tone for everything that followed. Everything within Ridge's visual boundary affects our aesthetic integrity. That includes you. That night, they slashed my tires. 2 weeks later, they blocked my gravel delivery with a chain across the cul-de-sac. No lock, just some smug suburban man in a visor chair, sitting like it was his personal border patrol. When I tried to tow the obstruction, Margaret called the sheriff on me, claimed I was disturbing the peace. Thankfully, the deputy who came out had gone to high school with me. He took one look at the deeds, shook his head, and muttered, same old Margaret. She didn't care. She came back harder. Fake fines, nasty letters, claims about wildlife disruption, petitions full of made-up names. Her board showed up one afternoon with a clipboard and a measuring tape and tried to trespass until I stepped out with my phone recording. They scattered, but the damage had started. One morning I showed up to find the foundation flooded. Someone cracked the valve on the water line overnight. Concrete batch ruined, delayed me by a week. 2 days after that, the local permit office froze my variance request because they'd received community complaints about noise, zoning, and disruption. It was all coming from Margaret and her concerned homeowners of Ridge, a Facebook group with 6 members and a whole lot of lies. I tried to reason, tried to explain the vision, tried to show them the design, a stunning stone structure with green roofing, rainwater collection, solar array, and a public courtyard that could host weddings, art shows, even town halls. Margaret didn't care. She said my castle was a visual threat. The tipping point came when she tried to buy me out. She showed up at my site in a beige SUV, heels clacking across red clay, holding a check for $350 dollars. That's more than the land appraised for, but less than I'd already spent building. I'm offering you a generous exit, she said. You're not welcome here. You're upsetting the balance. I stared at her, stunned. Balance of what I asked. Conformity. She didn't flinch. Of resale value. I looked her square in the face and said, lady, I'm not going anywhere. That night, someone spray painted, take the check across my retaining wall. That's when I knew I wasn't just building for myself anymore. I started digging deeper. Turns out, Margaret wasn't officially elected. The HOA had never filed proper nonprofit status with the state. No quorum, no minutes. just a fake title on letterhead, bolstered by fear and silence. She'd convinced the neighborhood they were part of something official, but in truth, they were bound only by suggestion. Her suggestion, and worse, Margaret's husband was a partner at the real estate firm, buying up land around the subdivision, including a bid to convert my acreage into a luxury retreat if I folded. That generous offer, it was bait. She didn't care about the castle, she cared about the profit it blocked. So I made a call to my old mentor, to a few city council folks, to a couple of local journalists. I laid out the deeds, the harassment, the property sabotage. I showed them what I was building and what she was trying to kill, and then I started filming everything. Not for evidence, for inspiration. I posted time-lapse videos of the build, shared the stone-laying process, showed the night I installed the circular turret beams, shared my mom's voice on a tape recorder saying, "Build something no storm can knock down." The response, over 100,000 views in 2 days, hundreds of comments, people sharing their own HOA horror stories, kids sending in crayon drawings of Mr. Brooks' castle, and one message that floored me: "If you finish that place, my wife and I would love to get married there. She's been fighting cancer. We want something magical. Please." I knew then what I had to do. Build faster, build harder, make it undeniable. But first, I needed help. The next morning, I left my ego at the door and walked into every hardware store, supply depot, and tradesman's bar I could find. I started asking for help, not charity help. I explained what I was building, why it mattered, and who was trying to shut it down. Some folks waved me off, some just listened, but a few just enough nodded. Old-timers with calloused hands, veterans with weekend time. Even 2 guys from the local college's construction management program offered to intern just to learn stonework. By the end of the week, I had a volunteer crew of 9. We weren't just laying bricks anymore. We were laying down a message. Margaret didn't take it well. When she saw the scaffolding go up on the tower, she screamed loud enough for the site across the street to hear, "You're making a mockery of this neighborhood." A few neighbors clapped. Margaret stormed off, but not before trying to tear down the little Brooks Castle build sign we'd propped up by the fence. She tripped on a pile of sandbags, twisted her ankle, and yelled at us for creating hazards. We just kept building. The more she tried to fight, the more support we got. People started dropping off lunches. One lady baked us a peach cobbler every Friday like clockwork. A retired plumber showed up and offered to run the pipes himself. A former stonemason Vietnam vet drove up from 2 towns over just to show me how to chisel arch joints by hand. Each of them had a story. Each had once been pushed out, ignored, or made to feel small. This wasn't just a build anymore. It was a rebellion in limestone. Margaret tried again, this time with a petition to halt construction due to community stress. She claimed the design was medieval intimidation, that the stone walls were a psychological trigger to some residents. It would have been laughable if it weren't signed by 30 names. But here's the kicker. Half those people didn't even live in Willeridge. 3 names were literally out-of-state relatives. I confronted her at the next HOA town hall, which she insisted on holding in the park with a fake podium and dollar store banners. I walked in with copies of the deeds, the petition, and the screenshots of every violation she had mailed me. And I live-streamed the whole thing. "Before you call me a nuisance," I said into the mic, "just remember I offered to show you the plans. I offered transparency. I offered a seat at the table, and you tried to silence me because my dream didn't fit your paint swatch of normal." Margaret tried to interrupt. I didn't let her. I built this for more than myself. I built it for the people like me who are tired of asking permission to exist. This isn't a castle. This is a stand. The video went viral that night. 2.6 million views. A week later, Margaret's husband resigned from his real estate firm. Not retired, resigned. Turned out one of their biggest investors had seen the video and backed out, citing bad press and unethical land targeting. Then came the city review. Turns out Margaret had been issuing letters and notices using a forged HOA seal, one she downloaded from a template site and slightly modified. She'd been pocketing dues, issuing fake citations, and manipulating elderly residents into thinking they were legally required to pay her. The city issued a cease and desist order, an audit, and a public notice invalidating her authority. Everything she'd built, every illusion of power crumbled. Just like the old fence she ran into with her car that week in a fit of rage. Yes, really. And the castle, we finished it on Memorial Day. The final stone was laid by a 10-year-old girl who'd watched the build every week from across the street. Her name was Ava. Her mom said she had social anxiety, but when she saw the tower go up, she told her mom it looked like a place where brave people live. So we gave her the honor. She smiled the whole way through. Opening day wasn't just a ribbon cutting, it was a declaration. We invited everyone, HOA or not, kids, seniors, neighbors, even people from nearby counties who'd followed the story. We opened with music, food, and a dedication to the builders, the dreamers, the ones told no who kept laying stones anyway. And we unveiled a plaque on the wall near the courtyard gate. It read, "This land was never for sale. It was already paid for in roots, in memory, and in fire. And now, in stone." Margaret. She moved out 2 months later. No big announcement, just a moving truck and a stiff wave. Her house sold at a loss. We sent her a thank you card. But the most powerful moment came a few weeks after that. A couple pulled into the gravel driveway and got out holding hands. They were the ones who messaged me, the ones wanting to get married under the tower. She was in a headscarf. He was shaking. They walked the grounds, touched the stone, took in the view from the turret window, where sunlight cut through the leaves like stained glass. Then she looked at me and said, "You built peace. That's what this place feels like." That's when I knew Margaret didn't lose. She was just replaced. Replaced by real community, real intention, real legacy. I didn't build a castle to spite her. I built it to prove that not everything powerful needs to ask permission. Call to action. What would you do if your dream didn't fit the mold? Would you shrink to fit someone else's frame? Or build your own walls, your own roof, your own foundation? Have you ever had a Margaret in your life? Someone trying to bulldoze your purpose? Tell your story. Because when we stand together, stone by stone, no fake rule book can hold us back. Share this if you believe in building beyond fear. Let's turn every no into a cornerstone.